Welcome back, to another session on my Caribbean and Latin American news. Now, thank you so much for joining, and I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe. Now, yesterday you didn't watch my video, so please go back and watch the video that I published yesterday so that you can stay current and abreast of what is happening in the geopolitical world. Okay, so thank you so much for joining again. Now, this afternoon, we are going to be looking at a rather interesting topic: mystery in Trinidad Deepens. Sean Sobers, no proof fishermen die. Now, we're hearing from the Trinidad Guardian this morning that there is absolutely no proof, according to Sean Sobers, not Saunders, but Sean Sobers, that the two fishermen that were allegedly dead, and I've seen a funeral service a funeral service was done at least for one of the fishermen. And I'm wondering what the dickens is going on in Trinidad, because there are lots of mysteries to be solved. Now, why is Sean Sobers coming out at this given moment to let us know that these fishermen did not die, or there's no evidence that they're dead, from the military strikes that were launched on their boats a few weeks ago? I really wonder what is happening in Trinidad, but that is the world in which we live. It seems that the government can do whatever it wants and get away. So Trinidad is facing a baffling case as two fishermen were reported missing, and Sean Sobers now questions the official claims of their deaths. With no evidence to confirm what really happened, the mystery surrounding their fate continues to grow. Watch as we break down the latest updates and the potential implications for Trinidad's coastal communities. Now, do you think the fishermen could still be alive, or is there more to the story? Now, these are some of the things that we have to ask ourselves. If we have two Trinidadian citizens who were alleged to have died from a military strike, why is it that the government did not seek to assure the family members, loved ones, the citizens at large? Because they would have to also be concerned. The Trinidadians had to have been concerned about really what took place. But now that we're hearing that warships are moving into Trinidad or docking in Trinidad, and people are suggesting that regime change is in the air for Venezuela, we see now that Sean Sobers, the Minister of CARICOM and Foreign Affairs, he's now suggesting that there's no evidence. There's no evidence. Now, where is the evidence that Nicolas Maduro is an illegitimate president? Where is that evidence? Where is evidence? Where is the evidence, I should say, that Venezuela stands at the center of drug trafficking in the United States, when the UN report, the United Nations report, the DEA report suggests that Venezuela is not? Now, it's not that Venezuela is free of drug trafficking. It's not that Venezuela is free of drug trafficking and that they are saints, because they're not. And the government of Nicolas Maduro might just well be involved in drug trafficking. But how much drug trafficking is he involved in, when we're told by United Nations authorities and also the DEA authorities that the major transit points are Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Mexico? This is where the drugs move through, and the Pacific Ocean to the United States. So when they're there blaming Nicolas Maduro and suggesting that he's the only one who has to be disciplined, and he is the only illegitimate president, we have to ask questions. Now we're hearing that Gustavo Petro, who challenged the United States recently, he journeyed to the United Nations General Assembly, and I understand while during his stay in the United States in New York, he actually participated in a protest action where the protesters were launching a protest against what was happening in the Gaza area, and he made open pronouncements against Trump, the Trump administration, and what they're doing in the Gaza area. and that the war should stop. Now, because he meddled into that sort of protest, we're understanding that Trump is now launching, and he also has been critical. Gustavo Petro has also been critical of what is happening here in the Caribbean and Latin American region with the US warships and US striking speedboats in international waters. He has been critical of that also. Because he has criticized the Trump administration and is standing up to Trump on those 2 points, then he's deemed also now as an unlawful combatant. And Trump has actually imposed tariff, not tariff, but sanctions, not tariff. He has imposed sanctions on the president himself, Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia. Okay? So, where is the evidence that he's also a drug trafficker, that Gustavo Petro is a drug trafficker? And we're not saying that he might not be, but there's no evidence. Where is the evidence to have suggested that all the speed boats, and now we understand that we are now in the 10th strike of speedboats in the Caribbean waters, as the United States continue to allege that these speedboats contained drug traffickers and perhaps drugs on these boats without any evidence and due process. Now, if they're suggesting here that there is no evidence for the death of these two young men, and Sean Sobers has suggested also that he's working with the police, with the Trinidadian police, to see the whereabouts, to locate the whereabouts of these two young fishermen. That is rather strange. That is rather strange. But what is really strange is the fact that they've already had funeral services, at least for one that I have seen, okay, in which the family members were, you know, crying and, of course, grieving the alleged disappearance or loss or death, if you will, of their family members. So today we are not sure, even in the Caribbean, whether your loved one, your family member, your spouse is dead or alive. Just can be some allegation. We just don't know. Because if the United States strikes, then it's alleged. Now, what if there's a war between Venezuela and Trinidad, the US and Venezuela, and people are struck? So they won't be able at this point in time to get closure in terms of where their family members are, did they die, all of that. There won't be any closure. There won't be any closure. Okay? And this is what we are suggesting here, that we are living right now in a very dangerous world, a rather mysterious world. A rather mysterious world. Why did Sean Sobers wait until this given moment to suggest that there's no evidence that the two people have died? Why did he not immediately seek the collaboration of the Trinidadian Security Force to investigate, to do thorough investigation in terms of to locate the whereabouts of these two Trinidadian fishermen? These are questions we have to ask. These are necessary questions that we have to ask. But I thought I would share that with you to say that this is rather bizarre that the Trinidadian government, could be now suggesting to its citizens, gaslighting its citizens, that perhaps the young men did not die. So where are they if they did not die? And why not instruct the family members not to have held a funeral activity in which there was nobody in the casket, because of course the bodies would not have been located, right? The bodies would not have been located. And this is what the Guardian is saying. Ministers say to TNT, men missing may not be dead after US strike on boat. So they may not be dead, because he's saying that, um, well, we don't know. We don't have any evidence. All right. Now, Sean Sobers also is barefaced, and he's saying that we have a diplomatic contingent in Venezuela, saying that there's no strain between on the relationship between Trinidad and Venezuela. Absolutely no strain, according to him. We have a diplomatic contingent in Venezuela. Nobody has moved. Nobody has run or gone anywhere. Work is operating as normal, and there are no issues. Now, how can we trust a government, okay, of that ilk? How can we, when we know that there is or there are tensions, palpable tensions between the United States and Venezuela, in which Trinidad is a third party because the government, the prime minister of Kamala Persad Bisesar, has defended Trump's move for striking boats in the Caribbean without due evidence, so called alleged gunboats, blowing them up, killing people, and say that these are unlawful combatants. And as a result of that, they have no rights. They have no human rights. And that is what you have to understand. When you are declared an unlawful combatant, a terminology that George W. Bush came up with during his launching of the war on, won't call that word, that T word, then he declared that these people will be summarily, summarily, summarily executed. They would have been summarily executed. That is what the then president suggested. And we're seeing now that Trump is using that comfortably. All right? So Sobers, he's the Minister of CARICOM and Foreign Affairs of Trinidad and Tobago. He says we have excellent relations with Venezuela. I have been in constant contact with the ambassador to Venezuela, Alvaro Sanchez Cordero. I call him by his first name because we are very good friends. We have no issues with Venezuela, Sobers said. No issues. Now, listen to what he's saying now, and this is the crux of the matter. Regarding the USS Gravely, a US naval ship present in the region, Sober said there is no verified information linking it to any strikes conducted by the Trump administration. I don't know at all where you got that information that the USS Gravely was involved in any strikes within the Southern Caribbean. That is beyond me. I would caution anybody from saying that unless they have evidence, unquote. Now, one of the things about our governments, and I'm ending here, when they want evidence, they find it. When there's none, when the evidence is staring you in the face, they'll tell you that there is no evidence. Now, whom do we believe? Okay? Do we have eyes to see? Do we have ears to hear? Do we have any inkling of common sense? Or are they suggesting that we don't have common sense, that we don't have any brain? I think that's what they're suggesting. And that we ought to sit and listen as robots to the government. And whatever the government declares, that is what we should embrace as the gospel truth. The gospel truth. Okay? Because what else could they be suggesting? Nothing else. But that is what rather bizarre, and I have to end my video here. Okay? But that is rather bizarre that the fishermen could be alive. Yet we're hearing not only from local news and regional news, but from the international news, that they died. So, what should we believe? What do you believe? Please let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you and to making another video to interact with you. Remember now to like, to share, and to subscribe. Very important that you do that. See you in another one. Hasta entonces.